Dearly beloved, we're gathered here today. I have always wanted to do that. Hello, everyone. I am Harrison Guy. I'm the Director of Arts and Culture for the 5th Ward Cultural Arts District. And I'm very excited to be a part of the 7 cultural districts that came together to make this happen tonight. It's a truly collaborative effort and it's super inspiring. I feel like a collaborative energy is really brewing in the city, and if it haven't reached you yet, it is coming. So I am here I'm really excited because I'm one of those artists who loves politics, and it's very rare that we mix the two. And so I am super excited, but artists are always at the forefront of change, of progress, and we know how to get things done. So it is very fitting that the first Mayoral Forum is about arts and culture. Because that's our community. And that's how we do it, right? And so I'm actually here to introduce to you our moderator for the evening. So our moderator tonight is none other than Linda Laurel. So Linda Laurel is best known as an Emmy and Gracie Award-winning journalist who anchored the evening news for nearly 17 years at Houston's NBC affiliate KPRC-TV. As founder and executive producer of Linda Laurel Media and host of the award-winning podcast, Our Voices Matter, Ms. Laurel maintains her journalistic roots as a consummate storyteller. Isn't it fitting that her podcast is called Our Voices Matter? Because tonight as artists and culture and history people, we're coming to let these mayoral candidates know that our voices matter. As co-founders of the Linda Laurel Scholarship Fund, Linda and her husband, Lou Gregory, have awarded over $4.5 million in college scholarships and have, put your hands together for that. And if you've ever met a Linda Laurel scholar, they are brilliant. And they've also provided more than 370 Houston area students with training on life skills over the last 32 years. What a legacy. On September the 30th, they are handing off the organization to the Laurel Scholars and their daughter, Lindsay. That's what I call passing the torch. All right, so earlier I said that it is rare that politics and arts mix like this, and I know that as artists, we're probably sitting here saying, man, I just wish there was an artist on stage too. Well, we're in luck. Linda Laurel is also a former professional dancer, and she has danced on this very stage. She also MCs the Performing Arts Houston Gala every year, and she was on the advisory board for the Hope Stone Dance Company. A reminder that artists are everywhere. You never know who is an artist. That our voices matter and our vote matter once again. And so please help me welcome to the stage our moderator for tonight, the iconic Linda Laurel.
Thank you. That's what I call an introduction. My goodness. Thank you, Harrison. Hi. How are you all doing? You ready to have some fun? Yeah, me too. Let's have some fun, okay? We need to have some fun. Okay. So it's my pleasure to once again welcome you to the Mayoral Forum on Arts and Culture. This is a very exciting evening because it's the first time that Houston's 2023 mayoral candidates have come together on one stage, this stage, and you are in the room where it's going to happen. So we want to first thank you. Thanks our host this evening, the Hobby Center for the Performing Arts, and our event organizers. Houston's 7 state-designated cultural districts, and by the way, we have more cultural districts in this city than anywhere else in the state. Thank you very much. That deserves a round of applause. And they are Arts District Houston, East End Houston Cultural District, 5th Ward Cultural Arts District, Houston Museum District, Midtown Cultural Arts and Entertainment District, 3rd Ward Cultural Arts District, and Theater District Houston. And a special thanks, round of applause for all of the districts being represented tonight. And a special thanks for support of this event from Alma, Texas, Arts Accountability Houston, BIPOC Arts Network and Fund, the Hobby Center for the Performing Arts, Houston Alliance for Latinx Arts, Houston Arts Alliance, Houston Endowment, and Poppy Massey. And now, I think it's time that we welcome Houston's mayoral candidates. Please join me in welcoming Amanda Edwards, Robert Gallegos, Gilbert Garcia, Lee Kaplan, Sheila Jackson Lee, John Whitmire, and Robin Williams. We're all here. It's time for a party. What do you think? You ready?
We're ready.
Are we ready? Okay, we're going to do this. We will begin with each of our candidates offering an opening statement. They will have 1 minute each for their opening statements, and then we will be getting into the questions. So, Ms. Edwards, you have 1 minute. Please begin.
Well, good evening. My name is Amanda Edwards. I'm one of your former at-large Houston City Council members, and I'm thrilled to be running to become the next mayor of the city of Houston. And one of the things that's important for us to note is that our city's at a crossroads, and we've got to make the choice to move our city forward in a way that can be bold and innovative and create a Houston where every person has an opportunity not just to live here, but we need them to thrive here. And a part of thriving in our community is making sure that we have a robust arts and cultural community, one that is known not just as a hidden gem in the city of Houston, but renowned across the United States. You need a mayor that's going to support the arts and cultural community in efforts, and you need to make sure that the leadership puts it at the forefront as a priority. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Edwards. Mr. Gallegos, you have 1 minute.
Good evening. I'm Councilmember Robert Gallegos. It's been my honor and pleasure serving and representing the Theater District for these past 10 years. As council member, I have the experience in knowing that there are many areas in our city that do not have civic art. And that's why we're here today, to try to figure out what we can do to make sure that these areas that do not have civic art, that we can provide funding, resources, so that way they can have civic arts, due to the fact that it's so important here in our city of Houston, and with the 7 cultural districts, working with our management districts and our TERS in regards to hopefully finding some funding under those entities to make sure that we are able to provide civic art in our communities that lack the civic art. So that's one reason why I'm running for mayor here in the city of Houston, to tackle that as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Garcia, 1 minute, please.
Thank you. I'll go quick. My name is Gilbert Garcia, and I want to be your mayor. And I can tell you right now, I love the arts. I love the arts. And I can tell you why, because it's been a priority in my life for my whole life. I've been a member of Touch for probably 20 years. I've been a member of Broadway Across America for probably 20 years. In fact, there you go. In fact, I can tell you right now, I've invested in plays, I have supported the arts, I've invested in movie shorts. In fact, I am the only one standing up here that's been a Tony-nominated co-producer for New York, New York. And of course, we didn't win yesterday, but at the end of the day, we had a good showing. And so I've been involved with the arts my entire life. And you can count on me to support the arts if I were elected mayor, and I'm gonna make it a priority in my life and in this city for everybody.
All right. Mr. Kaplan, you have 1 minute.
I'm Lee Kaplan. I am not a politician. I'm not beholden to anybody. I have spent my life as a lawyer, and most recently we went from 3 lawyers and a secretary to 28 lawyers, 50 people. We did it by being responsive, competent, accountable, and acting with integrity. And I think that the city's basic needs have to be met. Those relate to public safety, drainage, congestion, picking up the garbage. But most important is housing affordability, because that prices many artists who are not salaried people and don't have a guaranteed income out of our market. Very important for us to have affordable housing, and that's one of the things I'll focus on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kaplan. Ms. Jackson Lee, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I love Houston, and I can see that there are a lot of people in this room that I have loved because I have worked with you, and I thank you for what you do. I thank you for being the advocates for the art community, and recognizing that you are a vital part, not only of Houston, but of the state of Texas and the nation. Let me give you some breaking news. The arts community in Houston is excellent. It has no comparison in the state of Texas, and it is really surpassing the East Coast and the West Coast. As mayor of the city of Houston, I will amplify the broadness of the arts community. It will be a sounding, resounding voice with funding, with expression of recognition, with spreading the civic art landscape, with ensuring that this city becomes a destination city because you exist. It will be the kind of community that will go as far west as Alief and as far north as places close to the airport. Why? Because this is an art mecca, and I'm going to be sure that everyone knows about it. Thank you.
Mr. Whitmire, 1 minute, please.
Thank you, and good evening, Linda. Nice to see you again. Thanks to the Houston Arts Alliance, our culture districts, and supporting individuals for bringing us together tonight. We need to come together like this more often, not just in an election season, because most Houstonians don't know how important the arts are to our economy, to our mental health, to our quality of life. It's our duty to let all Houstonians realize how critical the arts are to our success in making it a destination. I was fortunate this spring to pass Senate Bill 1057. 3 miles in every direction from the George Brown will be an entertainment district with hundreds of millions, in fact, billions of dollars coming to the arts and the downtown destinations. We'd made certain that the theater district was included in that distance. But that's not good enough. We've got to get into the communities. Do you know how many folks and young people in Houston cannot afford the arts? How many of young people have not even been to the Nutcracker or Hamilton? We've got a lot of work to do.
Thank you. Ms. Williams, please, you have 1 minute.
Absolutely. Hi, my name is Robin Williams, and I think my mom played a good joke on me because she named me after a great actor, Robin Williams. But I took a different turn in life. So I served in the Marine Corps at the age of 19, at the height of a war. I swore my right hand to serve and to protect. And shortly after that, I joined the American Red Cross as a manager, reconnecting refugees displaced by war. And shortly after that, I put on a blue uniform, and I knew that I needed to serve Houston as a police officer during COVID, during the freeze, during the Arctic freeze, and when neighborhoods was engulfed with crime, I was there to serve you, and I will always serve you. Thank you again.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Okay, we're going to move on to the questions now. And by the way, all of tonight's questions were sourced after conversations and interaction with all of you in the community. So these are the questions that you want answered. So we will begin, again, going in alphabetical order. You will each have 2 minutes to respond to the question. And the first question is, more than 70% of Americans believe that the benefits of the arts extend beyond the individual to the community. If you are mayor and are planning for the city of the future, how will you ensure that Houston is recognized as a cultural leader? Ms. Edwards, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you for the question. I want to highlight how critical arts has been in my life. Growing up, arts was a saving grace for me. I was very involved as a teen in the National Arts Honor Society, and earlier on in my life understood that outlets for people are productive and helpful for their mental health, for their emotional well-being, their physical health. And so I've spent quite a bit of my journey also supporting the arts in various ways. I served as the Project Bro House's board president for a number of years. I've also had the opportunity to help get the Music Arts Therapy organization off in their 501c3 status as a lawyer for them. And so I've spent a great deal of time making sure that we are connecting our people to the resource of arts and culture. One of the things that I think is going to be really pivotal in this next mayor's administration is making sure that we provide adequate funding for the arts, that we also connect it to emotional well-being, health, access to activities such as potentially an arts and recreation festival that we could embark upon. So there are many efforts that we need to take, but also we need to make sure that we're bringing the arts community to the table so that they are not what's on the menu. As you know, that's an old adage that is said because oftentimes we don't bring our collaborative partners to the table when it comes to actually promulgating policies that work. Policies like expanding, for example, right now we collect a percentage on our contracts at the city, we collect a certain percentage for public art. We need to continue to also promulgate more efforts in that regard as well.
Thank you, Ms. Edwards. Mr. Gallegos, same question.
Thank you. First of all, thank you. As mayor, what I will instruct is MOCA, the Mayor's Office of Cultural Affairs, to do another arts and cultural plan. The last one that we've done was back in 2015, 2016. We need to know where we're at. We need to know what resources are needed, so that way we can provide the arts and cultural, especially trying to find funding for our cultural districts. We have 7 cultural districts, but unfortunately they really don't have the funding that they are needing. And that's the purpose of having the arts and cultural plan, so that way they can go out and try to find the resources and report back to the mayor. So that way I as mayor will know where we need to direct our resources, where we can hopefully find more resources. Like I had mentioned in my opening remarks, there are areas in the city of Houston that don't have the civic art in areas of our city, and that's a shame for being the 4th largest city in the nation, and we are lacking areas that do not have civic art, and as mayor I will be addressing that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gallegos. Mr. Garcia, you have 2 minutes.
So again, I didn't just discover the arts because we're here. I've been involved with the arts my entire life. In fact, I could tell you, when I proposed to my wife, we proposed on the stage right after the ballet Snow Maiden, because we were ballet supporters. And they opened it up, and there were all the people that are involved and the stagehands and everyone. I proposed to her right there in the middle. The arts have been part of my life and our life for decades. And it isn't just New York, New York. We've been engaged and we've been investors in many different plays, whether it's Cinderella with Andrew Lloyd Webber, whether it was Tina, and many other things. We support the arts because it's the right thing to do. And the only way Houston's going to be part of the great cities in the same breath of the world, like New York, like London, like Paris, like Barcelona, all these great cities, is we've got to have a growing and thriving art community. It's a priority for me, and it'll be a priority for me when I'm mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Mr.
Linda,
Kaplan.
can you repeat the question?
I sure can. I know.
I went too long.
The question is, if you are mayor and are planning for the city of the future, how will you ensure that Houston is recognized as a cultural leader?
Well, first of all, we're in danger of losing our status because housing is not affordable. And COVID and the pandemic set us back quite a bit. All kinds of performances were canceled, and a lot of the revenue that artists would otherwise have seen was lost. So the first thing we have to do is really reconstitute what we have. The second thing we have to do is make it possible for artists to thrive here. We have a lot of people who live here and are artists, and they're not being helped. And if we arranged for their working conditions and living conditions to be less onerous, then they can support themselves. Right now, people who are non-salaried really cannot survive without better housing. And we hear every day about the alternatives that are coming forward, whether it's the East End, the far west, the north side of town, the south side. All of these are important. We have to address the basic priorities for Houston first. And I think it requires candor to say that the arts are important, but we have to address these other key needs first. If we make the city a place that people want to live, then we will also attract more art, whether it's civic art or the personal art of people, because this is a gloriously indisciplined and creative city. We've got to foster that, and as a 45-year subscriber to the ballet and the husband of a woman who was chairman of the Lawndale Art Museum for a few years, we appreciate art at our home. But it's very important that the people who make that art can live here. And right now, that is something that's not happening. It's a critical need. So having a bully pulpit, making speeches, those are valuable, but we have to make it easier for people to live here.
Thank you, Mr. Kaplan. Ms. Jackson-Lee, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. It is obvious that we can do two things at once. The people in this room represent hardworking activists who deal with the vast magnitude of art. As the mayor of the city of Houston, it will be words and deeds. I will establish a cultural ambassador that will interact with arts as far west as you can see and as far north and south and east. And as well, I will go back and look at the value of a master plan for public art, and I will insist that our resources that are utilized to promote the city, such as Houston First, that monies are used to enforce and impact your art wherever it is. Small art, tell your story. Tell your story in Fifth Ward, in the East End, in Third Ward, in Sunnyside, in downtown. Tell the story of artists. At the same time, it is extremely important that we establish housing for artists. It can be done. There needs to be increased corporate participation. But the way you have the bullhorn to let America know you can come to Houston for art. You can have an arts vacation in Houston, Texas. And it is important for mayors to know the pulse of the nation, where there are the opinion makers, the influencers, to get that story out. It is important for us to highlight an art, a small arts, a medium-sized art every week. As a non-elected official, I sat on the Houston Industrial Board, using bonds to create the facility that Wortham was built when Sheila Jackson-Lee was a small fry on a board that insisted that we build a state-of-the-art facility. We can do more of that, tell our story, and make sure that the world knows, get on a plane because Houston pops. Why? Because we've got an art community that is not just downtown, but it's way, way away, and it tells the story of our very diverse community.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson-Lee.
I'm going to be your fighter for arts. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson-Lee. Mr. Whitmire.
Thank you. First of all, we can have all the plans in the world, but if you only get 19.3% of the hotel occupancy tax, which is about $20 million a year now, you stretch thin. We've got to come up with the means to increase the hotel occupancy tax. The city brought me the legislation. It was well thought out. 3 miles in every direction from George Brown. We're creating an entertainment district to support the arts. If we do not keep up with Dallas, San Antonio, and Austin with their facilities, we're not going to attract folks to make Houston the destination that it should be. So what the legislation did, starting in September, and we'll start receiving millions of dollars. The city's not going to have excuses that you're not funding arts any longer. The money's going to be there. In terms of hundreds of millions of dollars, we will create the entertainment district and we get all additional sales tax that the state would get. Hundreds of millions. Initially, Houston First is going to sell bonds toward that revenue stream. But we've got to use that money not only for the entertainment district, additional facilities, the arts, but we've got to get out into the community. I am going to leave here with the impression on your mind is arts are not affordable to many Houstonians. That's just wrong. It's got to be inclusive. We've got to listen to the neighborhoods, what their desires are. Go outside in the inner loop. Go to A-Leaf, Spring Branch. Be inclusive of everyone. So let me just suggest we're an exciting city, we're a great city, but we've got a lot of work to do. And it's going to be financed through the new legislation, but let's listen to the residents and the neighbors what they'd like with the Arts Alliance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Whitmire. Ms. Williams, the floor is yours for 2 minutes.
Absolutely. So, audience, I need you to go on a mental trip with me. The police officer on the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, he was waving the baton and saying, "Stop drawing on that wall." And that was my first introduction into the arts and culture of the community. I had a call at Home Depot, juveniles stealing spray paint. I came there, instead of making the arrest, I purchased the tools for them. And you know what? They said, we've never had a police officer or my parent or anybody care about the art we make. If you're driving by and you see those little tags and graffiti, that's someone that wants to be an artist. That's someone that is engulfed into the culture. That's their first introduction into art. And not only that, nuisance calls. Hey, we have a group of teenagers shooting a music video and they're making noise. And you know what? I was the police officer that intervened. And you know what I found out? Is that they don't have a place to call their own. They don't have an arts and culture center. They don't have that. So the sidewalks and the streets will have to do until me, as the next mayor of Houston, Texas, builds it for them. Those music videos go on, and it's on TikTok. I done seen myself on YouTube, hugging the children. You'll see me on hopscotch with my good leg from the military. And they draw on the concrete, and I'm out there with them because I want to let the artists and the cultures know that you are my future, and I believe in you. I believe in that little doodle. I believe in that dance. I believe in your first ballet turn. I believe in you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Okay, on to the second question. And Mr. Whitmire, you gave us a good entree for this because we're going to talk about the hot tax, the hotel occupancy tax. So Dallas spends, on average, $17 per capita on the arts, while Austin spends $22.90 compared to Houston's, are you ready for it? Yes. $6.70. Just setting the stage for the question. Houston's thriving arts and culture scene is a significant contributor to the quality of life for its residents and visitors. It is an important economic driver, a primary recruiting tool for corporations, and a key tourism attraction for the city. So in addition to the current hotel occupancy tax allocations, what plans do you have as mayor to increase funding for the arts outside of the hotel occupancy tax? Your question. That's a great question, and it came from you guys. Clearly, you want the answer. Ms. Edwards, you get the floor. 2 minutes, please.
Absolutely. Well, I mentioned when I first gave my remarks that Houston was at a crossroads, and it involved us making a decision to move our city forward. But if we're not careful, our city can, in fact, move backwards. And that means that we have to make a choice to tackle some of the lingering challenges that we face. One of the bold, lingering challenges before the next mayor is dealing with the city's financial problems. Now, we can talk about hot tax, and that's one pot. But until we actually get to the root of the city's financial shortfall, this is going to continue to be a discussion over and over and over again. We must make sure that the city is standing on firm financial footing. The next administration will face a $300 million plus deficit. That's extreme. And the first thing that happens when deficits appear is that people are looking to make reductions and cuts. We need to shore that foundation up, make sure our city is firm and stable financially, but most importantly, grow the opportunity to support our arts community. Now, there are several ways that we can do that. One, many cities have tried this, and that is you can also opt in as residents in the city when you're paying your property taxes on a voluntary basis to also contribute to the arts community. So if you've seen when you go to some of your local vendors and they give you the option to sign up and apply $1 here, apply $10 here for this particular cause, we could implement a strategy just like that, and that would call upon and draw upon the philanthropic spirit of the city of Houston. Separate, we can continue to support our arts community by also creating more special purpose districts with the intent to help support our arts community, both in terms of what we build, but also the operations that we need to support. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Edwards. Mr. Gallegos.
Thank
2
you.
minutes.
First of all, I know Senator mentioned Senate Bill 1057 that was passed recently in the legislature. The question is why did it take so long? Austin and Fort Worth passed it back in 2013. We heard in regards to Hurricane Harvey that impacted the Wortham. If we would have had this in place 10 years ago, we would have had funding to help the restoration of the Wortham Center, which was $100 million. It was $70 million just to reconstruct the tunnels in our theater district. So can you imagine how much money we would have had if this was passed back in 2013 to tackle these issues? As mayor, I know there's 1.75% that goes into vertical construction in regards to city facilities that are new, refurbished. As mayor, what I would like to do is also include that for horizontal. With Build Houston Forward, we have an opportunity in the future, once we pay off our bonds, with street construction and drainage systems that we will be working on, where the money that can come from horizontal construction can go into the arts. And that's why I'm asking MOCA, when I become mayor, to do another arts and cultural plan. So that way we can have all this information and we can start working on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gallegos. Mr. Garcia.
Thank you. It's very clear, when you see numbers that low, when you make a comparison to other cities that are our neighbors, it's just not a priority. That is the bottom line. It's just not a priority. And you can say all the things you want to around that. You can argue about, well, the tax is not this or that, but it's got to be a priority. And I understand the financials of this city are going to be very difficult. And I can't say whether it'll be 300 million, 200 million, but at the end of the day, we all know it's going to be very, very challenging. If you go outside, I have my pledge of the first 100 days what I'm going to do. And one of the things I'm going to do is bring transparency back to City Hall. And I'm going to audit all the departments that the feds or the DA, anyone that they rated, I'm going to audit. They rated the housing department. They rated the health department. Our own housing director said it was a culture of corruption. I didn't say that, he did, before he was fired. At the end of the day, when you have leakage like that, that's a problem. And when you look at moderate income housing, it's very challenging. I'm experimenting myself. I'm building units on the northeast side of town. And you want to know the number one issue? I can't get a permit. I can't get a permit. It took me a year to get a permit. And you should want those properties on the tax roll, and you should want that moderate income housing. There's a problem, and we need to look at things differently, and we have to be willing to be bold and aggressive. I would audit those areas. I put the entire check registry for 5 years online. I would look at permitting. I try to make it more market forces. And at the end of the day, with your help, we could turn this corner and make Houston as great as we all want it to be and as great as it should be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Mr. Kaplan, 2 minutes.
Look, you deserve candor, and the truth is that the city was set back quite a bit by Hurricane Harvey. There's $400 million we were cheated out of. All the city can do, really, is encourage the private sector to do what it's done before. This is the second most charitable city per capita in the country after Minneapolis. There's a good reason for that, because mayors have supported that kind of work for the arts. And I've looked at the whole budget. It's $6.2 billion. And I think there's very little fat in the budget. We can all make arguments about it, but if we make the city more livable, and if we have more TIRZs, tax increment reinvestment zones, at which one of the priorities is that there be an investment in a TIRZ in public art, we'll be better off. That's the way to do it. A lot of speeches about, I'm going to attend to this, we're going to audit this, we're going to do these different things, do not honestly cope with the hard, cold priorities of the city. We've got to do things about public safety and drainage, pick up the garbage, and permitting. If you can get permits, you can build housing more easily. If we have housing for people, then they will be free to pursue their own interests, which include art. This is a charitable city, and a mayor who is a bully pulpit for that will make a lot of progress. You can't simply say, we're going to give more of the hot to the arts. You can't simply say, we're going to get all this extra money. It's not out there. And I'm sorry to be candid, but I really want to answer the question directly. It's going to take a private sector initiative that the mayor pushes.
Thank you, Mr. Kaplan. Ms. Jackson-Lee, you have 2 minutes.
You know, I'd like to give a little hope to those who are here. Just a little bit. That we're all not going down the tube as we leave this building. There is no doubt that Hurricane Harvey and Ike and the freeze hit this city badly. But we're more than that. We're even more than the word resilient. We are creative. And you need to expect that your mayor will be as creative as you are. And so here's my perspective. As a 6-year member of the Budget Committee, I will tackle the budget, but I will not tackle it alone. There will be council members, but there will be experts. The good news about Washington is that you meet a lot of people, and experts can pour in to your analysis to be able to move the city forward and be able to deal with the deficit. You know we're dealing with that in Washington. That's number one. Housing is my middle name, the unhoused and homeless. So we have to deal with that. Permitting, I will be the kind of mayor that goes to departments, analyzes it by data and analysis, and look to streamline a permitting process that even impacts the arts community. But I think the question should be answered about how do we fund that. Now, you didn't ask about HOT, but just forgive me. The amount that we do in the city is 19.4%. If we can get a consensus, we raise it to 21, 22, 23%. To give more money for the Houston Arts Alliance 5-year contract to distribute funds. On the grant, it's $84,000. You raise it. Yes, we have challenges, but you have plans. Public-private partnerships can be utilized. The National Endowment for the Arts that I have supported all these years. We have not been a great grant-receiving community.
Jackson-Lee, your time
and
is
so
up.
I want to bring that expertise, how you can get into the weeds of the NEA, whether you're a small, medium, or an artist.
Please wrap
and
up
this
your answer.
is the plan to be creative, to give you hope. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Whitmire.
First of all, I'd like to talk about a lot of other issues, public safety, infrastructure, but I think tonight you deserve to hear our position on the arts. Ladies and gentlemen, I have prepared my whole adult life to become mayor. I've worked with 9 mayors. We've done problem solving, and that's the only reason I'm running, to make a difference. Mr. Gallegos, my friend, knows I don't set the city's legislative agenda. This was the first year that they brought me the legislation because we're losing our place in the destination of Texas cities. We're losing to Dallas, San Antonio, and Austin. So I was chosen by this administration on a very tough mission. The state does not give up its revenue willingly. So it took me to be able to work across the aisle and come up with a package that we could pass in a bicameral way. Ladies and gentlemen, the excuse of we're underfunded, Linda, is going to go away. We have to spend it responsibly, and we have to be responsive to all communities, include city council, but include every super neighborhood. Go out and get the public's input, which we're missing, quite frankly, at City Hall right now. I don't claim to know everything. I want to listen to your views, but I'm a fixer. I'm known in Austin for getting things done, and that's the only reason I'm running for mayor, and that's the reason they brought me the Houston First package. You won't believe until they release it in September, the vision for downtown. An additional convention hotel, which we badly need for the arts. But go beyond George Brown. When they put the roads behind George Brown, we're going to have an east side entrance to Houston First facilities. It'll open up a green space and open up the East End. I'm excited about Houston's potential. It's a great city, and if we work together, it'll even be greater. Thank you. But one last thing, affordability. There's too many of my constituents don't get to enjoy the arts, and that ought to be our goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Whitmire. Ms. Williams.
Yes. So about 2 years ago, COVID hit us, the pandemic. And I'm not going to tell you lies and tell you, hey, we can fix this overnight and put a bandage over it and give you a fancy speech. But the issue is $1.6 billion was lost from arts and culture. 42,000 jobs were lost. Our current mayor said, hey, I'm going to give you $5 million to patch up a 2-year gap. That is not enough. That is not okay. You deserve more. We deserve more. It is not acceptable to put, look at the potholes. They put a little sheet of gravel and expect your car to just pass through it. That is not enough. A quick fix won't do it. We have to be transparent, and we have to address the issue at hand, which is the arts and culture. The arts and culture has been shaded. $5 million, and he turned around and stated and said that, hey, the arts and culture is not the backbone of Houston. I beg to differ. I believe you are the heartbeat of Houston. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Okay, the next question. And Mr. Gallegos, you mentioned something about this in your previous remarks. The city's previous cultural plan is dated 2015. What is your plan as mayor to invest in and commit to a new citywide cultural plan for 2024 and beyond? How will you ensure that diversity, equity, and inclusion are prioritized under this plan? Ms. Edwards.
I believe it is time for us to promulgate a new plan, one that includes diversity, equity, inclusion at the forefront. We are living in an era post-George Floyd's murder, one where art, where expression, where cultural expression was central to part of the healing, but also part of the solution and problem solving that our communities face. We need more displays of public art in our city. One of the first things that I had an opportunity to do as a council member when we saw that there was going to be millions of dollars poured into the city of Houston was to ask the Super Bowl, don't just pour money into our city just surrounding this Super Bowl and this football game. Pour it into our communities. And I asked the Super Bowl, pour it into our communities through art. We partnered, they paid for, and we helped elevate community members to be a part of a series of public art murals all across our city. That's something and an example of a partnership and several types of partnerships that we can incorporate into our next plan. We also need to make sure, as was stated, that the funding paradigm makes sense and that we're supporting our arts community as a whole, both big and small organizations. I know over time there's been a tension about whether the bigger organizations get access, whether the smaller organizations get access. We all should get access, whether you're an organization, an individual, or just an artist who is just trying to make his or her way. This is a time where we need to bring your voices to the table. So when we do embark upon the next arts and cultural plan, I will be inviting you all, the spectrum of those represented in this room, to be a part of that planning process, because you know the old adage, if you're not at the table, you are what's on the menu. And we don't want that for our arts community. You are a jewel of our community, and in fact, you can be the pivot point for our community to really be the space that thrives in this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Edwards. Mr. Gallegos, 2 minutes.
Thank you. Houston's the most diverse city in the nation. Again, I've been on council for 10 years representing the theater district. I've been the only Latino on city council for 8 years, and I had many artists that would come into my office and felt like they were not getting their fair share. Well, MOCA did the city civic art program equity review. The first one came out in 2020. They came to my office and reported on that. Come to find out, I believe it was 65% of the artists that were chosen were white male. They came to my office in the 2022 plan recently. It's gotten a little better. But what has really gotten better is now with the review plan, they're now asking questions and the ethnicity and origin. So now you have more artists from all across the city that are diversified in regards to diversity, that are now artists that are given the opportunity to at least submit their applications. It hasn't gotten better in regards to the number of artists that have been chosen in regards to more diversity. But as mayor, I want to continue to make sure that MOCA does that review every year and stay on top of it to make sure that things improve, especially since we're in the most diverse city in this country.
Thank you, Mr. Gallegos. Mr. Garcia.
Thank you. First, to not have a plan or an update in 7 or 8 years is pitiful. That's outrageous. We should demand more. I think that's further evidence of where the priority is or isn't. And if you look during my term as Metro Chairman, I was Metro Chairman under Mayor Anise Parker. And one of the things that we did is we expanded light rail, and I'm happy to say it, thank you, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson-Lee, because if it weren't for her, we wouldn't have gotten the money. It's true. Give her a round of applause. It's true. But the point is, as Metro Chairman, what did we do? We ensured that along all the stops as we expanded rail, that we featured local artists on artwork on all the stops. That was our, thank you. That was our way of doing something simple and easy, but yet it's profound and it's important, because as people see that art, little children can say, you know what, I can do that. And then they can get exposure and hopefully make a living out of their art. That's the whole point. And as it relates to D&I, that's been my life. Like Lady Gaga says, I was born this way. I didn't choose this. At the end of the day, our firm, just look at what we've done. We've created one of the premier money management firms in the country, period. We manage now $21 billion, which, by the way, is almost 4 times the city budget. And we have 70% of our team are women, and 70% are black and brown. That's right. And more than half, or about half, are from the University of Houston system. We are proof positive that you can have local talent, people of color, women, and minorities, and still have excellence. And that's the point. And that's what I'm going to bring to City Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Mr. Kaplan, 2 minutes.
I don't need to ask what the question is. But let me tell you something. All these things are labor intensive. We can talk about funding things all the time, but the mayor sets the tone. The mayor's the executive. And one of the things I've done in working with a troupe that's over on Southmore is supervised the painting of murals for Eagle projects. Another one of the things I've done is teach the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Merit Badge And Houston was the first in the country to do that. We've got to have everybody's talent in Houston, but it is labor intensive to do the right thing. You can't just make speeches. You've got to go and do these things. And as somebody who was fired by his piano teacher and has and that's true, no real pretensions to artistic talent, I at least, in the words of one Supreme Court justice on obscenity, I know it when I see it, and I respect it, I honor it, whether it is something that's abstract or representational or a poem. These are things that we have to encourage, and the only way we do that is by the mayor showing up to encourage people to do stuff. I've read all the plans and all the reports on art over the last 7 years, and I have to admit, slide decks leave me cold. As a trial lawyer, I've seen them for years. They don't solve problems. You have to get out and do things, and that means just doing them and not talking about them.
Thank you, Mr. Kaplan. Ms. Jackson-Lee, 2 minutes.
I've given you some words. I've given you hope. I've given you pop. Now I'm going to give you bold. It'll be the mayor's task as mayor of the city of Houston, and as I would be the mayor of the city of Houston, that we would have a new plan, because plans work. Why? Because plans are you. I indicated to you that I would meet with the arts community quarterly, listening to you as to the tentacles that should go out into the community. I would have a cultural ambassador as well. And in this plan, I would listen to the ideas of what was given way back in 2015, that there should be a cultural plan for all parts of the city, including education. There should be an arts and cultural plan. In addition to that, I would listen to those who are advocating for a Latino museum. I am a supporter of that in Washington, D.C. I would listen to BIPOC, who deals with the indigenous persons. And so all the new people that have come since 2015 will be at the table. They will be at the table, as well as those representing the gender, LGBTQ plus community will be at the table. Art is everywhere. I brought in $155 billion for Harvey. It was a difficult time. Our corporate giving before Harvey was very high. It's not as high in the arts as it should be. Yes, a mayor will have to be bold and hopeful and define the city as a city with pop in order to bring our corporate friends in, to give more monies not only to our larger entities that have a base of funding, but let's work to those that are startups. I want to get residential housing for my artists so that they can do their art and do it with the comfort of having a place to be. Yes,
Jackson-Lee,
it is a challenge, but do you want a mayor that looks at problems or a mayor that is bold and solves those problems?
Thank you, Ms. Jackson-Lee. Mr. Whitmire, 2 minutes.
Thank you. The first thing that government has to do to fix a problem is recognize that you have a problem. For too long in Houston, when it comes to arts funding and inclusion, we've kicked the can down the road. What the next mayor is going to have to be able to do is bring people together. Yes, you're going to have to be able to talk to the leadership in Austin. Unfortunately, they're getting more and more involved in city government. So the first thing we're going to have to do is admit we have a problem. Our arts are underfunded and they're not inclusive enough. 2, we've got to bring all the stakeholders together. We certainly have to work with the county. We do not have the luxury in Houston, in Harris County, to duplicate services. Harris County has a very effective arts programs. If we just sit down together and not duplicate our services, not duplicate spending our resources, we could get so much more done. So let me just pledge to you as someone that's known as someone that can get it done. Experience matters. Certainly we'll have a plan, but the plan ought to include Harris County. It ought to include our school districts. It ought to include our communities. It ought to include the diversity, equity, and inclusion. It will. Certainly GLBTQ plus community will be at the table. And there's so many other things I'd like to talk to you about tonight. If we don't solve public safety, probably nothing else we talk about tonight matters. The quality of life and let people be able to walk the streets in the theater district and be safe is so significant to where we're going to go in the next years. We have a great city. We have great people. But people are entitled, our citizens, to the expectations of a quality of life in a city that works on all the facets that we've discussed tonight. Thank you for bringing us together. We have a lot of work to do. I wish I could start in the morning. I know I have the experience and the boldness to make a difference and bring people together. We have diversity in the city, but some are trying to divide us as I stand before you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Whitmire. Ms. Williams.
Yes. In 2015, I finished my first contract in the United States Marine Corps. Wow. And arts and culture has not been updated since 2015. As your next mayor, I can promise you this, and I don't make many promises because politicians tend to lie or bend the truth. But as your next mayor, I can promise you this, that we will go to the underfunded communities and find the gems. That's where the artists are starving. They want to be seen. They are crying out. They're on your TikTok, on your YouTube. They're dancing down your street. They want to be seen. So we have to create a table for them to be seen. And most importantly, as a police officer, I want to make sure that you are safe. I just saw on the news a young lady wearing a turquoise wig and it was snatched from her head. I don't want that to happen in our city. It happened in New York, but I don't want it to happen in Houston. Because I want you to be able to wear your art boldly. I want you to rep the LGBTQ+ community boldly. I want you, if you're from the 4 acres home, I want you to rep it boldly. If you're from 3rd Ward, I want you to rep it boldly. If you're from 5th Ward, I want you to rep it boldly. I want to see the residents of Houston, Texas show up and show out because artists and culture is the future.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Okay, our next question is, there is near universal support for arts education. 91% of Americans believe that the arts are part of a well-rounded K-12 education. Over 90% say students should receive an education in the arts in elementary, middle, and high school. With the state taking over HISD, how? Okay. With the state taking over HISD, how will you, as mayor, assist schools in making arts and culture a priority and accessible? Ms. Edwards, 2 minutes, please.
As the next mayor of the city of Houston, it is critical that we don't turn a blind eye to what is happening to education in our city. And one of the things that is really glaring is the fact that with the state takeover of HISD, it has put a big, bold X over the city of Houston in our ability to tell people to come here, raise your family here, educate your children here, and most importantly, thrive here. And until we understand that, no, we don't have direct jurisdiction in the office of mayor over what happens with HISD. We have a very big bully pulpit as the next mayor that governs 2.2 million people, that runs a budget of $6 billion. And I believe that we represent voices of people who are not being heard. Voices of people who want to make sure that when they send their child to school that there truly is a plan for success, and that success is well-rounded, meaning there is arts education. You're talking and listening to someone who was a beneficiary of arts education. It was an outlet to me as my dad was struggling with cancer. It is critical that kids and students continue to be poured into, invested in. You never know if that's going to be a creative outlet. You never know if this is going to be a saving grace or someone's future career. This is about investing in the future of our city. It's one thing to say we all can live here and just get by, but that's not good enough. That's not leadership. Leadership is about making sure that people don't just have to get by, but people have a way and a pathway forward where they can succeed and truly thrive. And by way of having arts education, pre-K on up, you're talking to someone who was very much a beneficiary of that. It's critical that we put that in place and use the tools at our disposal to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Edwards. Mr. Gallegos.
With the state, the senators and the state representatives that we have out, and the governor and the lieutenant governor, basically they just recently passed a bill where they're telling the city and the cities and municipalities what we can and can't basically pass as a city ordinance. So now the state is taking over HISD. They're telling our kids what they can and can't read. They're telling the teachers what they can and can't teach. So to tell the mayor, or for the mayor to try to go into HISD that's controlled by the state to try to help with the arts, I don't think that's going to fly very well. But as mayor, what I would like to do, we have community centers, we have city parks, we have festivals. I will encourage MOCA to go out there to our community centers, to our city parks, to our festivals, and promote the arts. And let our kids know the importance of the arts. I'm proud to have brought the Dia de los Muertos festival and parade here in the city of Houston. Last year we didn't have a festival. We had a festival, we didn't have a parade due to the fact that it was the last game of the World Series here in the city. So we had to compete with the World Series. But this year we're looking for a bigger and better festival and Dia de los Muertos parade, which I encourage y'all to please attend. So with the state telling the city what we can and can't do, can you imagine, instead of you coming to your city council member to say you have an issue in your neighborhood, if it's contrary to a state law, we're going to have to ask you to go to your state representative and your state senator, which meets every 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gallegos. Mr. Garcia, 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you. Again, it's really a question of priority. When you think about it, our budget is over $6 billion. Over $6 billion. We don't really have a revenue problem. We have a management problem, a competency problem. And at the end of the day, when you look, if we're spending on the arts barely $6 billion, that's essentially a rounding error. We got to do better. And I know how important it is for young kids to be involved with the arts. I saw it in my oldest son, who was exposed and then became a wonderful pianist. And I saw it with my daughter, who went to the Humphrey School in the summer for a summer program. And then she was really motivated, and now she's been a very well accomplished singer at the St. Agnes Choir. Had it not been for that moment to impact her and touch her, she would have never been involved with the arts, never. And we need to make that accessible to everyone, not just my daughter, but everybody's son and daughter. As it relates to the state, it's very interesting to me to see everyone talk about the state takeover. It's the takeover that took many years to happen. Where was everybody when this was going on? I don't know, but it sure was. It's like a slow train wreck that was in slow motion for years. And the only one that's suffering are the kids. And at the end of the day, now that we are where we are, what the mayor needs to do is not continue to fight Austin, but to work with Austin, to already find a way, what is the glide path of success, so we can get local control back. And when I was chairman of Metro, people said I'd never be able to work with the county. I'd never be able to work with certain members of Congress. I never would be able to work with the multi-cities because they were all Republican. I'm a Democrat. At the end of the day, I proved them wrong. I'd do it again when I'm mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Mr. Kaplan.
The state takeover is an accomplished fact. We can be angry about it all we want, but frankly, I hope that what they'll do is pour more money into the schools and let them claim success. We need the money. Our teachers are not drones. They're not overpaid slackers. We need to pay them. It's really disgusting that the legislature has approved all these pay raises but managed to get hung up on some kind of a system so that the teachers didn't get a pay raise. There's not much we can do about it except point out these failings. Greg Abbott was once a decent judge. He got the fever. He became a bad executive. And what they've done is hateful. It is truly hateful. And I think what we need to do is step back and watch them pour more money into the schools so they can claim victory. And hopefully, the test scores of our students will go up. Hopefully, the city will be enhanced. I'm willing to let them try to take some credit if we get the results we want, because there's no way they're going to improve the schools without doing what they've refused to do so far, which is put money into our schools. We're growing a whole generation that's undereducated, and that's a war on Houston. And a mayor has got to stand up all the time and say that. I think that Mayor Turner deserves some credit for being pretty forthright about what the state has done. And while I might criticize him for other things, he is dead right on this. This is disgraceful what they've done, and we simply need to make sure that everyone understands the difference between the school board that was working and this new group of people who I think are well-meaning.
Thank you, Mr. Kaplan. Ms. Jackson-Lee, 2 minutes, please.
I think the question was,
with the state taking over HISD.
what we're going to do about arts education in the school and the HISD takeover.
Yes.
First of all, the 2015 plan, the number one item that they had as instructions out of 27 that they gave us, yeah, I've gone through that plan, was to deliver arts and culture to our neighborhoods along with arts education. We have not gotten there yet. I'm a representative person. I listen to the people who elect me. My strength as a mayor will be guided by that along with my skills. So let me take just a moment. You work with the executive in Congress. I've worked with President Clinton, George Bush, Biden, and the other person, Obama, and the other person. They were like twins, Joe Biden, Obama, and the other person. Yes, I have. I've worked across the aisle. I've worked with Governor Bush, Governor Perry, Governor Richards, and in the beginning, clap, clap for Governor Richards, outstanding. I was not in Congress then, but I worked a lot with her. And I worked in the beginning with Abbott. The parents of HISD don't like what is happening. I'm standing with them, and I've fought with them every single moment. They wanted to be out protesting, and we will do it. The state is in charge now. Yes, we will tell the tale, but the state has never given HISD or any of the school districts as much money as they need. As a mayor of the city of Houston, we can do more than just speak. We can bring resources collectively from a number of places. I will be at the forefront of helping these school districts get resources from other places.
Thank you. Mr. Whitmire.
The first way we're going to get school districts involved in arts is to be able to reach across the aisle, work with people that you don't agree with. I work every day in Austin with people that I don't agree with on much. First of all, you have to respect them. You have to lower your voice. You're not going to get any results shouting out at them. And what you have to do, ladies and gentlemen, I've done it my whole adult life as a legislator. You have to put a face on the problem. Not having arts in public schools affect those families that don't even have children in public school. The folks that send their kids to charter or to private schools, They've got to be informed and reminded the public schools are the future of Houston and the state of Texas. The young people in the public schools are not going anywhere. They're our future leadership, our neighbors, our families. What we have to do is allow everyone to buy into the problem. You have to have someone with the people skills and the record of bringing all the stakeholders together. It takes experience, it takes collaboration, and it takes connections. I have that experience. I have a distinguished record in the legislature, and the only reason I'm running for mayor is to make a difference here. I love the Senate, but I love Houston more. I went to Waltrip High School, community college, and U of H. I am committed that Houston becomes even a greater city than the one we're experiencing now. But it's only going to be done if you can reach across the aisle and bring all the people together. We've got to lower our voices. I don't agree with what TEA did in many instances, but that's who's there. One last thing that ought to motivate all of us. This spring it came out that Yates High School, only 14% of their graduating seniors are college ready. We ought to be ashamed in the city of Houston that that population is not prepared to go to college. And that's what we ought to be motivated to fix and change.
Thank you, Mr. Whitmire. Ms. Williams.
Yes, as a police officer, I spend majority of my time on evening shift going to high schools and middle schools for adolescents and young adults that were misbehaving, fighting, cursing, you name it. But at the Root Center, there was no arts and culture there. There was no other outlet other than sports. I believe arts and culture is just as important as basketball, football, baseball, and they need an outlet. When I was a detention officer for the Houston Police Department, I seen some of the best artists locked up. They had the best drawing, they were creative, you name it. How do you make dominoes out of soap? They were creative. I would tell you they would have on jewelry and chains. It's made out of fabrics from the pillow cloth. Wow, we have so many artists behind bars. I know it may seem comical, but the truth of the matter is I don't want our children to go from K-12 to the state prison. I don't want that to happen. And if we don't create an outlet for it, it will happen because I see it every day.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Okay, our last question before closing statements comes from you. So thank you, somebody out in the audience. The arts sector needs artists and workers to thrive. How would you, as mayor, ensure that Houston's diverse artists and cultural workers stay here and thrive here? Ms. Edwards, 2 minutes.
As I mentioned, it's critical that our next mayor focuses on creating a city where all of us can thrive. And when we talk about thriving, that means asking and identifying what does that look like for each sector, with each person, with each community. And part of that involves us making sure that our city is affordable and accessible to our community, accessible to shift workers and those that may need alternative means of transportation, accessible to people who need to gain access to housing, what we call workforce housing, which we don't have enough of in our city. We've got to be using smart policies to put into place ways that we can connect the dots for people. That's what this job is about. It's about having a vision for the city, but it's also about creating solutions that connect dots, that bring down the barriers that exist for our communities. And certain of those barriers ranging from transportation to accessing housing is some, but also creating opportunity for people as well. What incentives can we create for artists or young entrepreneurs to then become first-time first-time home buyers. These are things that we can do with CDBG dollars that come down from HUD that the mayor has the responsibility to appropriately designate. These are ways in which we have to think about solution making, but also the results that are intended. It's not enough for us to give you speeches about wanting you to be a vibrant aspect of our community if you can't even afford to be a part of it. So we have to connect those dots. It's the leadership's responsibility to do so, which is why having the arts and cultural plan with you at the table and helping to set that agenda is so imperative so that we can create a Houston of tomorrow. I'm going to close with saying this. One of the things that I think is critical in our city right now is that so many people are rebounding from many things. The pandemic, we've had Harvey, and many others. We have got to make sure that they not only just have a response, but fully recover from all of these challenges that we faced. And I will do so as your next mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Edwards. Mr. Gallegos.
Once again, Houston is the most diverse city in the nation. And with MOCA doing the Civic Art Program Equity Review since 2020, 2021, and 2022, and to find out that 60-some% of the artists are white male, that's discouraging. To be in the most diverse city in the nation for our artists. So as mayor, what I want to do, there's no need to invent the wheel, or in this case, the artist's paint palette, but to actually go to other cities to find out what they are doing. Like Miami. They have a new ordinance that they passed 2-3 years ago in regards to art and open places. We've passed the Bayou Greenways project 2022 some time ago. We're almost done with the Parks Board has been working on that. Wouldn't it be nice when you're hiking or walking or riding your bike along the bayous, you see art pieces along the bayou? Try to go out to the community and encourage the artists in those communities to actually have the art pieces that they can be proud of, or going into our schools and asking the student artists, can they go out to our Bayou Greenways project and place their artwork along our bayous? This is something as mayor that I want to work on, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gallegos. Mr. Garcia.
Thank you. First, a couple of things. Number one, let's update that darn art plan that we have in the city that from 7 or 8 years ago. Let's just update that. Let's get it going and figure out where we need to go. Number one. Number two, we got to make it a priority. In a $6 billion budget, we got to be more than a rounding error. Right? That's a rounding error. It's really, it's almost an afterthought. We need to do better than that. That's second. Third, I think we need to, everywhere we can, like as Metro expands, any other sort of government projects, let's include art that features local artists, just like we did with Metro when we increased the rail line, and just like hopefully they'll continue to do as they start increasing the bus rapid transit network here in the city of Houston. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit that we just got to make it a priority. It's really, art is like a philosophy. It's a way of life. It's much more than just a painting. It's a philosophy and a way of life. And if you look at life through the lens of the beauty that art brings to everything that we do, we'll find ways to increase art throughout the city, and that's what I'll do when I'm mayor, because we've made art a priority in my life, and believe me, it'll be a priority to me in the City Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Mr.
One
Kaplan,
more time, can you repeat
I
the
will
question?
repeat the question. I most certainly will, happily so. How do we ensure that Houston's diverse artists and cultural workers stay here and thrive here?
Well, First of all, you can't make somebody create. You can't make somebody artistic. What you have to do is make it possible for them to live here and be happy. That's why, if you remember, the first thing I talked about was housing affordability. Who are the people that get priced out of Houston? The people who are non-salaried, who have irregular income, and frankly, who are the most creative. So that's something the city can do. I recognize that I'm not that creative when it comes to playing the piano, painting, being a chess master. I have a brother who used to beat my brains out in every artistic thing. He did origami and became an architect. But the mayor has a role in making it possible for people to live here. I have spent 8 or 9 years working with Troop 212 over on Southmore. And those are kids who need opportunities and who have succeeded because I didn't tell them what to do. I showed them opportunities, as did the other leaders in the troop. That's all we can do. This is a gloriously indisciplined city, and we have to let people be indisciplined and be creative. You can't mandate art. You can facilitate it, you can encourage people, but you can't make somebody creative. They have to have that within themselves, but they have to have the opportunity to develop it. And if they can't live here, and we know that artists are near the bottom of the economic ladder, if they can't live here, then they can't do that. So I think that safety and drainage and permitting and housing are very important. Make the city livable, and particularly for people at the lower end of the economic spectrum. And then we will have more.
Thank you, Mr. Kaplan. Ms. Jackson-Lee.
I don't believe that we are a city of no's. I think we're a city of yes. And I think it is a question of believing. Artists and artwork. I talk to the arts community, and they tell me more artists are leaving New York than ever before and coming here to New York, to Houston. That means we have something attractive for them. How do we do more? We've heard housing. As the mayor of the city of Houston, you can count on housing that responds, whether federal funds from HUD, CBDD monies, but we will find a way, public partnerships, public-private partnerships for housing. But how do you get work? You have a public art plan, and you begin to use parks and recreation. And when you do capital projects, you begin to look at ways that you can include art in it, and you give work to artists who do that kind of work there. Again, you find a greater assistance for corporations to invest in the arts, as they had done pre-pandemic. And then, of course, as I indicated, there are funds that we don't look at that we can begin to look at anew. Yes, we will have challenges in the budget. And I do want to remind you that when people are against something, they look to public officials to be able to give them comfort and support. That doesn't mean you don't talk to your friends on the other side of the aisle, as you hear us say, but it means that you stand with teachers and parents who didn't like the takeover. And the question will be whether the TEA has the ability to do the best for a school district this large, or whether they could have invested in dollars to help for reading specialists and help our teachers do the job themselves. So my message to you is the mayor will lead. I will find friends where I need to find them, as I've done over the 28 years in the United States Congress. No one will go over me to make something happen for each and every one of you. We will find
your time is up.
the way to go forward in a unified way. I think we will make a difference if we do it together.
Thank you. Mr. Whitmire.
I started with affordability tonight, and I'll end on affordability. As someone that has just created a revenue stream that will bring millions of dollars to the arts, I promise you I will be at the table to see that everyone enjoys that new revenue stream. Just think for a moment, how many people that you know on the job or in your neighborhood that can't afford to come downtown to our theater district or go to our museums. I know plenty. I represent people across Houston that can only dream of coming to the arts. And it's not just the arts, it's across Houston. City services are almost unaffordable. Try to take someone to the zoo. I talked to the zoo years ago. You've got to make it more affordable. And they said, well, we have go-kart days. I said, well, that's nice, but I'm talking about teachers and firemen and policemen. So they had free days every quarter, and it got so bad, and the congestion was so bad that people could not get into Ben Taub, the first responders. So what did they do? They just end that free day. We have got to be mindful of Houstonians that are entitled to the same pleasures that you and I have. We're blessed to be here tonight. There's people within walking distance of here that'll never be inside of a theater. I promise you, with hundreds of millions of new revenue dollars coming in through the new entertainment district, we will not only fix up our buildings, but we will make them accessible to people that cannot afford. And let me just applaud the Houston Opera that has taken young people to Wheeler Street Baptist. If they can't afford to come here due to transportation or work schedule by their parents, let's take the arts to the young people and the families in our communities. We've got to have a user-friendly city government. And if I get elected, it's not a big item, but it's one that drives me nuts. You shouldn't have to pay to park in a city park.
Thank you, Mr. Whitmire. Ms. Williams.
Yes. We have not touched on this subject, which is mental health. So many artists struggle with mental health issues in Houston, Texas. An EDO is an emergency detention order. My first EDO was a young lady, age 17, that was a cutter. And she used the blood from her arm to paint on her mother's wall. Some of the most beautiful art pieces you could have ever imagined. But the heartache behind it was the fact that she was suffering from undiagnosed mental health issues. And I took the step that was necessary and EDO'd her, emergency detention order. And I took her to Ben Taub, and to this day, her name is Alex. She's a model in New York City. And I'm so glad I was able to save someone. Right now, from mental health artists, it paints our underpasses blue and white. Those are the hospital blankets to let you know that they just came from the hospital. Tents, blue, green, and yellow, they're homeless. And if you go and you talk to them, a lot of them are artists. A lot of them are from the arts and culture community. We have to do better. Mental health is a silent elephant that a lot of politicians refuse to address. And as your mayor, I will address it. And as a mental health trained officer, I watched my mother struggle with schizoaffective major depression. This is near and dear to my heart. So it's art and culture.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Okay, it is now time for closing statements. You each will have 1 minute to make your final argument to the audience. Ms. Edwards, we begin again with you.
I thought you were going to go the other way.
I know, we really should have done that. They told me to do alphabetical. You
That's
kind
okay.
of got the short end.
I've been doing this all my life, and so I always at the front of the line. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for allowing us this platform to have this exchange of ideas. I truly believe that Houston has the opportunity to do something bold and innovative. One of the things that struck me when Professor Kleinberg left our city, he wrote about Houston looking like America's future. And I thought about that and thought, what if we could truly become America's future, not only in our demographics, but in the work that we produce, in the outcome, equitable outcomes that we embrace, and the way that we take challenges and turn them into solutions, and the way that we use our city as a canvas where we know we can create anything. Anything is possible for our residents. That's how I envision Houston. I want to paint a Houston that incorporates all of you in this room. I want to paint a Houston that includes our ideas, our challenges, but also our triumphs. And together, we can do just that. So I thank you all for having us this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Edwards. Mr. Gallegos, 1 minute, please.
Thank you. First of all, once again, thank you so much. It's been an honor and a pleasure these past 10 years representing the Arts District here in the city of Houston. And in these past 10 years, when the venues representatives would come in or artists would come in, it was always, there's not enough money. There's not enough funds. So as mayor, what I want to do, again, is to go ahead and find ways to find more revenue. And that's with the arts and cultural plan. Again, in regards to 1.75% going for construction projects that are vertical, I would like to expand that to horizontal. I also would like to get a 1% for construction projects so that way they could also go into the arts to find more funding. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gallegos. Mr. Garcia.
Yep. I'm Gilbert Garcia. I won't talk too much more about how much the arts mean to me because I think you got it. It's been a priority of my life. It's been a priority for my family, our investments, our kids, everything else. So I'm going to tell you the things I didn't get a chance to tell you, and I'll do it super fast. That is, okay, I'm a father of 4 kids. I'm married to my wife for 23 years. She runs the house. We've been very involved with our kids from the beginning. Why? Because my dad wasn't there for me. I love him, but he always worked and didn't have time for the kids. I have coached 40 seasons of soccer. I have coached my daughter in basketball. I am both the colt. I dress up in a horse outfit. I am the announcer at all the GHCAA track and field meets to see all of my kids. I don't miss anything with my kids. It's a priority for me. And that's the whole thing about things. You got to make it a priority and schedule around it. And that's what I've done with my kids. That's what I've done with the firm. And that's what I'm going to do with the arts when I'm elected mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Mr. Kaplan, 1 minute, please.
If you've noticed, I've often asked, what's the question? And I've also tried very hard to stay within the time limits. I think I went 1 second over one time. All of these things are worth longer discussions, but it requires a mayor who understands that the creativity of the city is the people in the city, not the mayor. You cannot, by executive fiat, make people creative or make their lives beautiful. What you can do is make living in Houston better so that we attract more people and that the people here, including the artists, have the kind of life where they can be gloriously indisciplined, gloriously artistic, and continue to make Houston a city that's a beacon to others. We've got to oppose all the efforts of the state government to clamp down on the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kaplan. Right on the nose.
Well, the one thing I'm very glad is that you can see that all of my friends, and these are all my friends, are collectively against a state takeover of anything in the city of Houston. And we're going to stand tall. I want to be your mayor. And in saying that, I only want you to look at results. I get results, I deliver. And I've done so in the elected positions that I've had. And I'm able to account whether or not it was the extensive work that I did during the pandemic, with bringing in federal dollars for testing. We were one of the first cities that got that, and the vaccines for those who would want it. So here's the point. The arts community in Houston is excellent. It is a community that is full of diversity and equity and inclusiveness. You can have a lot of money, you can have the hot tax, but you've got to have a mayor at the center of the table that'll be able to deliver not only to the theater district, the museum district, but as far away as your art is. And the individual artists who come here, we must welcome them and create the art community like a match, like an entertainment center, so you can work and you can be what you want to be as a creative mind. I will lead that way, and we will draw people from around the nation to do the work that gets this art community all across America. I'm coming to Houston because it pops, because the art community is dynamic.
Your time is up. Thank you. Mr. Whitmire.
I went to the legislature as a U of H student when I was 23 years of age. I spent my whole adult life as a public servant. 2 years ago, I was asked by Houstonians to come to Houston to use my experience and my contacts on behalf of the community. I accepted that request. There's no doubt in my mind that the arts are a piece of our mental health system. I wasn't exposed to the arts as a young man growing up, a student. I've learned as an adult that it expands your brain, it heals the wounds of deprivation, and it brings people together. You give me a chance to run this city from day one, I know I can make a difference. The arts will be well funded, but more importantly, everyone in the city of Houston will enjoy that experience and that mental health service that I think the arts can provide. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Whitmire. Ms. Williams, 1 minute, please.
Hello, everyone. I know everyone wants to know what happened to my arm. So, a subject, he was 18 years old, stole a city car, tried to run me down, going 90 miles per hour, and I jumped out the way with my handgun in my hand because bullets have a name on it. So I sacrificed my arm, but I come from humble beginnings. The Marine Corps was my outlet. If I had not had the Marine Corps, I do not know where I would be. That is someone in this room that is going to tell the very story that if I didn't have the arts and culture, I don't know where I would be. Houston, I want to protect you like I've done my entire life. Houston, mental health is important to us. Homelessness, lack of homes, affordable jobs, affordable homes. $7.25 is not going to cut it. How about $19 an hour? We got to do better, Houston.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Ladies and gentlemen, how about a round of applause for our mayoral candidates? We so appreciate all of you being here. We appreciate you being here. It's just a packed house and so much energy. Great questions. Thank you for all of the feedback. If you'd like to hear more from the candidates on the arts, please go to HoustonMayoralArtsForum.com to see their written responses to 6 additional questions. Thank you again. Don't forget to vote. Be safe. Thank you for coming. Good night.